everyone, I'm Erin Spain and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I made these DIY hanging wall shelves. This is a very easy project, but the biggest challenge is hanging them and getting everything straight and level. So I'm going to show you how I did that and what tools I used to make the job easier. Please be sure to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already and click the bell icon, and I'll be sure to link to everything I used in the description box below, and I'll also link to the written tutorial on my website. If you have any questions for me, please leave those in the comment section. Okay, let's get started. I started by cutting a 1x6 board into 4 pieces at 26 inches long each using my miter saw. Now I chose 26 inches for the length, but you can modify this to whatever length you choose. I used a 3/8 inch spade bit to drill holes in all 4 corners of each board. This is a Bosch Daredevil spade bit, and you can find out more about it in my blog post, which is linked below. To do this, I measured 1.5 inches in from each end and 1/2 inch from each side and marked it. Then I drilled it using a scrap piece of wood underneath to protect my workbench. Then I gave everything a good sanding with my orbital sander. Next, I stained my boards. I applied pre-stained wood conditioner first, which helps the wood take the stain more evenly, and it also makes it absorb a little less stain, which creates a lighter finish, and that's what I was going for. I'll link to what I used in the description box. I could have made it darker by adding another coat, but I like it pretty light. I let it sit for 20 minutes before applying my stain, and then I used Varathane Special Walnut Stain and applied it with a cotton cloth. I let the first side dry and then came back later and flipped it over and did the other side. And then after everything had dried, I applied a coat of polyacrylic in a satin finish. I wanted these shelves to hang from rope connected to a brass ring, so I used these brass O-rings that I found on Amazon, and I'll link to those below. Shout out to my friend Charlotte from @Charlotte's House, because I'm pretty sure she left this rope at my house when she was visiting for Pinners Conference a few years ago. So it finally came in handy, so thank you, Charlotte, and I will link to her channel in the description box. It's cotton rope, and I'll link to similar rope below. Each piece of rope is about 74 inches long, which was longer than I needed it to be, but I wanted to make sure I had plenty of leeway. You can modify this based on how low you want them to hang from the brass ring. I doubled it and then looped it around my brass ring using 2 pieces of rope per ring. I pulled the rope through the holes, and I had to twist the ends pretty tight before doing this so it would fit through, and then very loosely tied knots because I knew I would have to adjust the knots once I hung the shelf, so I didn't want to tie them too tight just yet. First, I chose where I wanted to hang my first shelf, leaving plenty of room below it for my second shelf. I marked and drilled a hole and then hammered a wall anchor into the drywall and inserted a screw. Obviously, you won't need the anchor if you're drilling into a stud. I hung my shelf and then used a laser level to help me adjust my knots and hang the shelf straight. You can find out more about the laser level that I used in my blog post linked below, and I will also link to the product. I'm part of Home Depot's Prospective program, and they send me a variety of tools to try out, and they sent me this Bosch 50-foot self-leveling crossline laser level, as well as the spade bits and a laser measurer, which I'll show you in a minute. I attached the level to one of my photography lighting poles, but a tripod would work fine too. I also used my laser level to line up my second screw with the first one, so I could be sure to position my second shelf centered below the first one. I readjusted the height of my laser level as needed and then moved it over to align my second set of shelves with the first ones. I also used this Bosch laser measurer to make sure my top shelves were equal distance from the ceiling and the shelves on each side were equal distance away from the card catalog cabinet. Speaking of the card catalog, if you search my website, there's a really old post with the backstory on it and the before and after. Long story short, my grandparents rescued it from an abandoned school building owned by a family friend. He let them have it for free, and we schlepped it in pieces from Indiana down here to Atlanta, and I refinished it. It was in pretty bad shape when we found it, but I love furniture that has a story, and I love mixing old and new stuff in my decor, so this is definitely one of my favorite pieces that I own. Okay, back to the shelves. I repeated the process, adjusting my knots until each shelf was level. I used my fabric scissors to snip off the excess rope, tightening each knot before I cut it. Then it was time to style the shelves. This is always the fun part. Here's a quick look at my process. I just grabbed stuff I had around the house, although I did buy a couple small succulent planters, and I spray painted them white. Whenever I'm styling shelves, I like to vary heights of the items and also mix materials and textures. Books and plants are often my go-tos when styling. I incorporated my little geode collection too. I also love that little king painting on top of the card catalog. It was painted by a local artist named Blaine McCauley, and it was a wedding favor at my friend Brian Patrick Flynn's wedding reception. Probably the coolest party favor I've ever gotten. I'll link to Blaine and Brian both in the description box because they're both awesome and you should follow them. Brian designs all of the HGTV dream homes and he always does an amazing job. By the way, I'll be sharing this whole room makeover soon with the before and after and the whole makeover process, so stay tuned for that. And now for the outtakes.
Messed that up. Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, there is a child yelling very loudly outside.
What am I doing with my hands? Oh my gosh. Wait a minute. One of these days I will do this in one take. One of these days. No, I probably won't ever, actually.
I'll also link to the blog post. No.
Wait a minute.
Thanks so much for watching. You can find me online at ErinSpain.com and on social media at ErinSpainBlog. In the meantime, please check out some of my other videos. Thanks!